The morning was cold, and the wind carried the sound of honking cars and busy footsteps. People were rushing to work, holding hot coffee cups and checking their phones, their eyes tired but focused on the day ahead. In front of a tall glass building stood a little girl named Lena, only 10 years old. Her small hands clutched an old lunchbox tightly to her chest. Her clothes were faded, her shoes were torn at the front, and her hair was tied in a messy braid. But her eyes, large, brown, and full of hope, shined like they carried a whole story inside them. Workers passed by without looking at her. Some frowned, some ignored her completely, and some whispered among themselves, wondering why such a small child was standing in front of a corporate building. Lena's cheeks were red from the cold, and her fingers trembled as she rubbed them together for warmth. Still, she didn't move. She kept staring at the main entrance like she was waiting for someone important. Every 10 minutes she would look up, as if expecting a miracle. After some time, a security guard noticed her standing too close to the gate. He walked toward her with a serious face. "Hey, little girl," he said, waving his hand. "You can't stand here. Kids are not allowed inside this building." Lena lifted her face slowly. Her voice was soft, almost like a whisper. I need to meet Mr. Zion." The guard raised an eyebrow. "The CEO? You want to meet him?" He almost laughed. "He's a very busy man. He doesn't meet children like this. Go home, dear. This is not a place for you." But Lena did not leave. She stepped back a little, away from the entrance, and sat near the big glass door, still holding her lunchbox close. She did not cry, even though her eyes were heavy. She waited, like this was the only thing she could do. People continued walking, and the city kept moving fast, but Lena stayed in that one spot like a small tree fighting strong wind. Minutes turned into hours. The cold became sharper. Lena's lips turned pale. Yet she stood again, taking tiny steps to stay warm. Every time she saw a fancy car arrive, her heart beat faster. Maybe it was him. Maybe the CEO would come out soon. She believed it with the innocence only a child could have. Some employees began to notice her, whispering while entering the building. "Who is she? Why is she waiting here? She looks so weak, maybe she's hungry." One woman wearing a long coat stopped for a moment and looked at Lena gently. "Sweetheart, are you lost?" she asked. Lena shook her head. "No. I'm waiting for Mr. Zion. I need his help." The woman sighed sadly because she knew it was nearly impossible. "Do you have an appointment?" Lena lowered her gaze. "No." The woman gently patted her head but walked inside, because she had no power to change anything. And Lena stood there again, hope holding her up like invisible wings. Hours passed. The building clock showed 11:30 a.m. The wind grew colder, and Lena hugged her lunchbox tighter, as if it was her only treasure. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other to stop her legs from hurting. The guard looked at her, feeling a little pity now. "You should go home," he said again, softer this time. "It's too cold for you. Come back with your parents." I have to see him today," Lena replied, voice breaking for the first time. "My mother is sick. I need help." The guard felt something in his chest, but rules were rules. "I'm sorry, child." Just then, a black luxury car slowly drove toward the company gate. Its polished windows reflected the city lights. Employees stood straighter. Some fixed their ties. Everyone knew who it was, the CEO, Mr. Zion, one of the most powerful men in the city. Lena's heart jumped. Her cold hands almost dropped the lunchbox. She stepped forward, ignoring the guard's warning. The security tried to stop her, but the moment the car door opened, Lena ran towards it. Her foot slipped slightly, but she regained balance and stood right in front of the CEO, blocking his way. Employees gasped. Some even took out their phones to record. The guard rushed toward her, but it was too late. She was already in front of him. Zion stepped out of the car, tall and confident, wearing a black coat and expensive shoes. He looked powerful, like the world listened when he spoke. He glanced down and saw the small girl staring at him with tear-glass eyes. "What are you doing here?" he asked, voice deep and serious. Lena's knees shook. She fell on them and raised the lunchbox toward him with trembling hands. "Please, sir," she said, voice breaking like a thin thread, "help my mother. She is dying." A silence fell. The busy road went quiet around them. People stopped moving. Even the wind seemed to pause, waiting for his answer. Zion stood still, confused, surprised, and annoyed at the same time. "Why me?" he asked slowly. Lena opened the old lunchbox. Inside it lay something small, wrapped in a cloth. She unfolded it gently. Zion's eyes grew sharper as he leaned in, trying to see what she was offering. Everyone waited. The screen of the story freezes here, a moment hanging between hope and rejection. What was inside that lunchbox? Why did she believe only he could help? The crowd stared at the small cloth inside the lunchbox. Lena's fingers were shaking as she carefully opened it. Inside lay an old, faded ID card, scratched at the edges, but one thing was readable: the name Adnan Rahim, employee, with the same company logo shining dull in the corner. Zion's eyes froze for a second. He recognized that design. It was their old company card from years ago, used before everything became modern. He hadn't seen one in a long time. People murmured around them. "Is that her father's ID? She said her mother is dying. What happened to her father?" Lena looked up at Zion with big hopeful eyes. "This was my father's," she said softly. "He worked here long time ago. He died in an accident." Her voice cracked. A small tear rolled down her cheek, but she quickly wiped it away like she was used to crying quietly. Zion narrowed his eyes, thinking. Many workers had come and gone. Many were lost in incidents, but he couldn't remember this man. Maybe because the company was smaller back then. Maybe because he had never checked every report personally. He took a step back. "Child, I'm sorry. I don't know who your father was. You can't just come here and—" Before he could finish, Lena's tiny voice cut through his sentence, brave and desperate. "I know you don't remember," she said firmly. "But my mother said, once you helped her years ago. She always told me you were a good man. That's why I came." Zion blinked. Something softened in his face. The security guard hesitated. The employees fell silent. Her words, so pure, so trusting, felt like a small knife in his chest. This little girl believed in him more than he believed in himself. Zion let out a slow breath. He looked at the lunchbox again. "What do you want from me?" Lena lowered her head. Her voice was trembling. "My mother is very sick. We don't have money for treatment. I tried everywhere, no one helped. I sold flowers, cleaned houses, but it is not enough. Doctor said she needs medicine soon." She paused, swallowing her fear. "Or she will die." The last word hung heavy in the air. For a second, Zion wanted to walk away. He wasn't used to emotional scenes. He lived in a world of contracts, meetings, profits. A child's tears were not part of his daily schedule. But something deep inside him demanded he listen. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was humanity he thought he no longer had. He turned slightly. "Come with me." Gasps spilled through the crowd. The guard stepped aside immediately. Lena's eyes widened, full of surprise and relief. She picked up her lunchbox and followed Zion inside the tall glass building. Her small footsteps echoed on the polished floor. Employees stared as she passed, some curious, some sympathetic, and some judging. But Lena didn't care. Her heart was beating fast. This was her only chance. Inside the elevator, she stood quietly in the corner. Zion pressed the top floor. His expression was unreadable. He glanced at her from time to time, as if trying to understand this brave little girl. "Where is your mother now?" he asked. "At home. She cannot walk much," Lena replied. "Sometimes she cannot breathe properly. I get scared at night." Her voice broke again, but she controlled herself. The elevator doors opened to a large office floor, shining with glass walls and expensive furniture. Lena had never seen something so big, so bright. She almost forgot her pain for a moment. Zion led her into his office, huge room, soft carpets, city view like painting on the window. "Sit," he said. Lena sat slowly on the edge of the chair, lunchbox on her lap like a shield. Zion took the old ID card from the box. "Tell me everything, from the start." And she did. She told him about her father, how he worked hard, always came home tired but smiling, telling stories about the company. She told him about the accident at the construction site. How one night he didn't return. How people came and said he slipped and fell, and how the company promised compensation but nothing came. Lena's voice trembled with every word, but she kept going. She told him about her mother sewing clothes all night, coughing, getting weaker. She told him about selling flowers on streets instead of going to school. She told him how every door she knocked on remained closed. Zion listened in silence. No phone rang. No one entered. Time felt frozen. When Lena finished, the room was heavy. Zion looked at the window for a long moment. His eyes were darker now, thoughtful. He finally spoke, slow and serious. "Do you have any proof of this accident? Any papers? Any report?" Lena opened her lunchbox again. Inside were a few old papers, hospital bills, a death certificate, and a folded letter her father once wrote to her mother. Her voice was almost a whisper. "This is all we have." Zion took them gently. Something in that letter made his eyes pause. It mentioned the dream of building a safe future, trusting the company, believing that one day his daughter would study in a big school. Lena's father had hope, just like Lena. Zion closed the file. He looked at her with a serious expression, the kind that hides deep emotion. He pressed the intercom button. "Call the HR head and legal team to my office. Immediately." People outside looked shocked. A child had moved the CEO. Lena sat quietly, unaware she had just shaken a giant building with her little voice. As footsteps approached the office, tension filled the room. Will they believe her story? Will they help her? Or will they try to push her away again? The door opened. HR and board members entered with strict faces. The battle for truth was about to begin. 3 people entered the office: Mr. Kamal from HR, Ms. Sana from legal, and another board member with a strict face. They stood near the table, surprised to see a small girl sitting in the CEO's office as if she belonged there. Kamal forced a polite smile. "Sir, we came right away. You called for an emergency meeting." Zion leaned back in his chair, holding Adnan's old ID card in his hand. His voice was calm but sharp. "Yes. I want to discuss an old employee, Adnan Rahim." The room changed. Kamal's smile faded. Sana straightened her glasses. The board members' eyebrows lifted in confusion. Zion placed the card and documents on the table. "This little girl is his daughter. She claims her father died in a construction accident, and the company never compensated his family. I want answers." Silence. A heavy silence. Kamal glanced at Sana, then at the papers, trying not to show panic. "Sir, this was many years ago. Records might be missing. And these kinds of cases." Zion's eyes turned cold. "I didn't ask for excuses. I asked for the truth." Lena sat quietly, gripping her lunchbox like it was life itself. Her feet didn't touch the ground from the tall chair, but her presence felt bigger than anyone in that room. Sana cleared her throat. She looked at Lena, then at Zion. There was an incident involving a worker named Adnan. But the report said he slipped due to his own carelessness. Lena's small voice broke suddenly. "That is not true. My father was careful. He always checked his tools. That day, the rope broke because it was old. Workers told us secretly." Kamal flinched. The board member shifted uncomfortably. Zion noticed it. His gaze sharpened. "So the equipment was old." Kamal wiped sweat from his forehead. "Sir, maintenance had issues that year. Budget cuts, you know how it was." Zion slammed his hand on the table. Papers jumped. Everyone froze. A man died because of budget cuts. No one answered. Lena's voice filled the silence, small but powerful. "My mother said the company promised to help us. But after some time, no one came." Zion's jaw tightened. His voice turned low. "Did the company ignore them?" Sana exhaled. "Sir, the compensation amount was approved. But the management changed that year. Some files were closed. We don't know who stopped it." Zion stared at Kamal. "You were in HR even then." Kamal's lips trembled. He looked down. "There were orders from above, not to push the case. We were told to move on." Zion's voice was dangerously calm. "Who gave that order?" No answer. But the guilt on Kamal's face said everything. Lena watched them silently, her eyes wet but strong. She wasn't scared anymore. She was fighting for her mother, for her father's respect. Zion stood and walked toward the window, hands behind his back. The city outside looked busy, unaware of the war happening inside one office. He spoke without turning. "Do you all sleep well at night? Knowing a child grew up hungry because of our mistake?" The room remained silent. He turned slowly, facing them with determination. I want the full file on Adnan's case. Every detail. Every signature. Every denial. Today. Kamal nodded quickly. Yes, sir. I will arrange it. Zion pointed toward Lena. And medical support for her mother starts immediately. Hospital, treatment, everything. I don't care about cost. Lena gasped softly. Hope flickered like a candle lighting a dark room. Kamal hesitated, looking scared. But sir, board approval. Zion cut him sharply. I am the board. His voice carried authority that ended all arguments. No one dared to speak again. Lena pressed her lips together, trying not to cry. She looked at Zion like he was a miracle. Thank you so much, she whispered. But Zion wasn't finished. He walked closer to her and knelt down, for the first time leveling his eyes with hers. I will help you. But I also want to know what your father meant to this company. Tell me something about him, something not in papers. Lena smiled a sad smile. He used to bring flowers to me after work. Even when he was tired, he told jokes. He always said one day, I will study in a big school, maybe in a building like this. Tears filled her eyes, but her voice was steady. He wanted to see me happy. Zion felt something shift inside him. A memory surfaced, a man smiling during a company event, handing him water when he needed it. Could that be Adnan? His mind wasn't sure, but his heart recognized something sincere. Suddenly, the door opened again. A junior staff member came running. Sir, we found something in old archives. There's a file, sealed with red mark. He handed the dusty file to Zion. Zion opened it carefully. Inside was the full report of the accident. And a letter recommending compensation. But at the end, a final note in bold red ink. Case closed. No further action. Next to it, a signature. Not Zion's, but someone from the board who benefited by cutting safety budgets. Zion's eyes turned fierce. This was not just a sad story. This was injustice. He closed the file slowly. Lena watched him with nervous eyes. Zion exhaled deeply. You were wronged. And I will make it right. Lena's tears finally fell, silent, warm, full of relief and pain mixed together. But outside this office, not everyone was happy. Whispers started. Some feared trouble. Some wanted to stop Zion. After all, reopening a closed case meant exposing corruption. The real storm was about to start. The phones on Mr. Zion's table kept ringing. Reports, deals, investors, everyone wanted his attention. But his eyes were fixed on the small old lunchbox in front of him. He slowly opened it. Inside was simple food, 2 cold parathas, 1 small piece of omelette, and a handwritten note on a torn page. For my father. I hope you smile when you eat. Lena. His heart felt heavy, like something important had been locked away for years and suddenly returned. Memories flashed in his mind. A little girl laughing, running to him. A woman packing food in an old lunchbox. A poor house, but full of love. He closed his eyes. A voice whispered inside his head, she looks like her mother. Meanwhile, outside the office, people stared at Lena with pity as she sat quietly, clutching her cold hands. She was tired, hungry, and scared. But she didn't move. She kept repeating softly, Papa called me, he will come, he will. Rain clouds gathered, wind became colder. She hugged herself, but didn't leave. Time passed slowly. In the office, Zion stood up suddenly. Something inside him pushed him to go see her. He walked out of his cabin quickly, his steps filled with worry. The staff looked shocked. He never left meetings, never walked out like this. He reached the entrance. There she was. Small, weak, shivering, eyes searching the crowd with hope. When she saw him, she smiled gently, even though her lips were turning blue from cold. You came. Papa. Those soft words hit him harder than any business deal ever could. His chest tightened. He knelt in front of her, removing his coat and wrapping it around her small body. His voice trembled. Lena, who told you I'm your father? She looked up, innocent and confident. Mama, before she closed her eyes last night. She said, find Mr. Zion. Give him this lunchbox. He will take care of you. He is your papa. Rain started falling. People watched silently. The world felt paused. Tears formed in his eyes, the strong CEO who never cried. He held her small hands, warm tears dropping on them. I didn't know. I never knew. Lena leaned closer, resting her head on his chest, trusting him without fear. My mama said, "You are a good man." Those words broke every wall around his heart. He lifted her in his arms carefully, as if she was treasure. "From today," he whispered, voice shaking, "you are not alone." He carried her inside the building, past the shocked guards, past staring staff. No one dared stop him. His coat covered her like protection, and she looked safe for the first time that day. Everyone watched as the powerful CEO walked through the lobby holding a small girl who called him Papa. Something big had changed. The first rays of the morning sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light over the city. Lena was awake, sitting on a small chair in a quiet hospital room. Her mother lay in bed, pale but smiling faintly, a soft blanket covering her frail body. The steady beep of the heart monitor reassured Lena her mother was finally safe. Beside her, Zion stood silently, watching. His eyes were tired, his suit slightly wrinkled, but his posture was gentle. For the first time in years, he felt something far more important than power, deals, or money. He felt responsibility, humanity. Lena's small hand held his, her tiny fingers wrapped around his as if they could anchor him to the world outside his skyscraper offices. "Thank you, Papa," Lena whispered softly, her voice trembling with relief and happiness. Zion's throat tightened. He knelt down, brushing a strand of her hair from her face. "No, thank you, Lena," he said quietly. "You reminded me what really matters." The nurse walked in, holding a chart. "Mr. Zion, the treatment plan has been approved. Medication, therapy, everything, she's stable now. If continued care is given, her condition will fully improve." Lena's mother stirred and opened her eyes slightly. She looked at Zion, recognizing him vaguely, and weakly whispered, You helped my daughter." "Yes, Zion replied with a gentle smile. "I promise I will make sure she never struggles alone again." Lena's mother's lips curved into a tiny smile. For the first time in weeks, she felt hope. Lena hugged her mother tightly, tears of relief flowing freely. Zion watched quietly, feeling a lump in his throat. This small family, once broken and abandoned by the very company he led, now had a chance to breathe again. After the initial relief, Zion called a board meeting. His expression was serious, almost stern. "We failed a worker and his family years ago," he said to the assembled executives. "Mistakes were hidden, promises were broken, and one child nearly lost her mother because of it. This cannot happen again." Some board members whispered, hesitant. They feared the exposure of past mistakes. But Zion continued, "I am personally taking responsibility. From today, every employee's family welfare will be prioritized. Compensation, medical aid, and education support will be guaranteed. And the case of Adnan Rahim's family will be corrected immediately." Lena's small fingers squeezed his hand. She had never imagined a world where justice could feel so immediate. She felt safe, valued, and finally heard. Over the next few weeks, Lena's mother's health improved steadily. With Zion's support, she received proper medication and therapy. Lena, meanwhile, focused on school, no longer forced to work selling flowers or cleaning homes. She laughed more freely, studied without fear, and even began helping her mother sew small items at home, planning to eventually start a tiny business. One afternoon, Zion visited their home again. Lena ran to him with a small gift, a handmade flower and a thank you note. "Papa," she said shyly, "I wanted to give this to you. You saved my mother. You gave me hope." Zion took the gift with a soft smile. The flower was simple, imperfect, but beautiful, just like Lena herself. He knelt to look her in the eyes. "Lena," he said, "you are the strongest person I know, and I have learned more from you than you can imagine." Lena's mother watched them, tears in her eyes. She whispered softly, "You found a father in him, Lena. And a guardian." The story of Lena and her mother soon became known within the company. Employees whispered about how a small girl had challenged the CEO's conscience, forcing the organization to correct a past wrong. Some were inspired, some ashamed, but everyone learned the same lesson: compassion and humanity are worth far more than profit and pride. Months later, Lena's mother recovered fully. Lena's small business began to grow. She sold handmade clothes and small crafts to local customers, her cheerful spirit drawing attention. She used part of her father's old savings and Zion's support wisely, investing in her education and her family's future. Zion often visited, not as a CEO, but as a friend, a guardian, a mentor. He played with Lena, helped her study, and quietly ensured her mother's well-being. He had changed too. His world of contracts and profits now included care, kindness, and accountability. One evening, as Lena sat by the window looking at the city lights, she whispered softly to her mother, "Papa helped us, but he also listened to me. I feel like my father is watching and smiling too." Her mother smiled, squeezing her hand. "You were brave, Lena. You asked for help. And that courage changed everything." Outside, the city moved on as usual. Cars honked, workers hurried, and buildings shone in the sunset. But inside one small home, a little girl, her mother, and a man who had once been just a powerful CEO shared something rare: hope, trust, and love restored. And the lesson was clear, for everyone who heard their story. Even the smallest voice, spoken with courage and truth, can move the strongest hearts and change lives. The screen fades with Lena smiling, the lunchbox now empty but full of memories, and Zion watching her with pride. The city buzzes on, but the story of a little girl who begged for help will never be forgotten.